Welcome to Kurojo Builds. Today we're going to make something for these WETA Workshop Lord of the Rings mini epics. I've had these guys knocking about for a while, banging sculpts from WETA. Let's build them a new home. So I'm imposing a 5-hour time limit on this build today because I love creating problems for myself. That, and along with wanting these to be fast and accessible builds. That in mind, I'm only going to use basic materials and the craft knife, so no hot wire cutter. Additionally, I haven't sketched these out and I'm building on the fly. It's a bit of an experiment, so please excuse any jank. Old Saruman had a tight grip on this. WETA did not intend for this to come out easily. As a testament to these figures, they're made really well, and that only enforces the guilt I feel by butchering them. I'm hoping this is something that maybe you can do with the kids, or if you've got some action figures or some different collectibles knocking around. This will inspire you to create some sort of little hidey hole for them, taking the hand's position and reversed it so it's pointing down. Just like that. Which is the catchphrase of another famous wizard, Tommy Cooper. That's right guys, I'm really old. So first of all, I'm butchering these beautiful sculpts. They are really great. These WETA Workshop sculpts, Lord of the Rings ones, have so much character, this great art style. If I didn't have mouths to feed, I'd have gone way down the rabbit hole collecting these. As it stands, I only grabbed a few so far. I was especially drawn to these two wizards. And anything I'm doing here is by no means a correction of what WETA had already done. I think they nailed them. I'm simply making them worse. But I do have some specifics in mind for how they need to look, so I've removed a few bits that I didn't think suited the dioramas. So in the case of these two guys, Saruman and Gandalf, I'm going to create an Isengard backdrop for Saruman and a Moria backdrop for Gandalf. These guys have a nice yin and yang about them, so they're perfect for bookends, which I think is what I'm going to build these for.
Ooh, that was close.
Working with the foam is really great fun, especially for rocks and mountainsides and cliffs and dungeons and caverns, etc, etc. There's quite a lot of examples of what you could do with the foam right there. I don't know why you needed all of those. Anyway, what does happen from time to time, as has happened here, is a happy little accident where I'm rushing and not being particularly careful. I've broken off a kind of little ledge, and the moment I saw that little ledge I thought, I like that little ledge, I'm going to use that little ledge. So this little ledge is now in the diorama as a little ledge.
It is a gift.
Here with the phone I'm just creating a quick and dirty rock texture. Cutting in at one angle, 45 degrees. Then I'm going to flip the blade over and cutting at the opposite angle at 45 degrees. And very quickly this sort of slate effect will start to appear. And due to the nature of the sculpts, which are quite cartoonish in style, I'm not going for ultra realism with these. Just something that complements the figures. And without sounding like making excuses, not something that draws too much attention away from the figures either. They're the centerpiece, so all the hard work's been done by WETA, thankfully. I am just making a little place for them to live.
The very air you breathe is a poisonous fume.
out, mate.
It's quite common in Wolverines over 40.
Switching here to that thin white extruded foam you get that's paper backed. I was lucky to find somewhere the paper actually comes off in one satisfying peel. Not always the case. Sometimes I'm pulling it about in warm water and every other technique, but it came off good. I'm using that to make some of the details for Moria. So I'm just creating some rock detail here. I've skimmed through most of this, but I thought this one in particular, just show you a close-up. There's several techniques you can use. Obviously you can use the knife. You can get in there with a saw. You can use heavy rock, which is obviously really good for creating rock. You can use your fingernails to gouge out pieces, which actually looks really cool. Depends how grubby your fingernails are. Mine are typically horrendous. This is the shortest I've ever cut them because I knew they'd be in close-up, so I hope you appreciate it because I hate cutting my nails. And then the blowtorch for smoothing it over. Most of this has been eyeballed, layering it up, creating a nice dwarven doorway. I'm sure there are guys out there who can point out all the things I'm doing wrong here with the Lord of the Rings lore. I've read the books. I love Peter Jackson's films. I hate Amazon.
There is evil there that does not sleep.
I'm a true fan, but I'm not an expert. I'm by no means a Tolkien scholar. If there are mistakes being made here,
speak, fragment, and enter.
Feel free to point them out in the comments. I want to educate the viewers. Be my guest. Saves me doing it.
One of you must do this.
Too lazy to research. Boom, let's take a break. Let's talk about these figures. They are super, super cool. You should check out WETA's back catalogue. They do a ton of different IP, ton of different franchises. Of course, Lord of the Rings is going to be one of their main exports because they completely created those movies. And they know it better than anybody, and you can tell. They really capture the essence of Lord of the Rings for me, but whilst being quite unique. They resemble the actors, even though they're in caricature. I'm of course not sponsored by WETA, but I do heartily recommend these figures. They are really good. Go check out what they're doing at wetanz.com. Now let's get back to me messing them up. So I'm now going to try to make the crystal that goes into Gandalf's staff that he uses to illuminate the caverns of Moria. Did a big old blob of hot glue that I can carve into a crystal shape. It would have served me well to have let this hot glue cool down even more, perhaps even putting it in the fridge. I've got a nicer cut, but time, so I didn't. But I basically embedded an LED in it, and what we have is a lovely light up crystal, which will do the job. Now I'm going on to the stand for the Palantir, which I will fess up is very rubbish. I made it far too fast, and even though this is a time challenge and I was accepting a little bit of jank, this pushed my jank button too far, revealing the web of lies that the internet actually is, but I rebuilt it because it was really irritating me to look at the one I just built there on screen. So in the end shots, if it looks a bit better than it does there, that's the reason. Right, let's dive into some sculptor mold. This is one of the crafter's favourites. Because of that, I got some a while ago. I gave it a go. I don't like it. So that's that sponsor out the window before we even get started. It's okay. You know what I find about it is it half sets really quickly, making it hard to use, but completely sets really slow, making it hard to paint. That's my experience. If anybody's got any top tips there on how to use it better, please let me know, because I struggle with it a little bit. I also find it a slightly unnecessary product. I mean, ripped up tissue paper in plaster seems to be something that we could all just make much easier. It's bad, isn't it? Should I be slagging them off? I'm not slagging off the guys that make sculptor mold. It was useful here. It worked. It's cool. Even if it does look slightly like cow shit. I added a bit of paint to my sculptor mold, as you can see. This is so that in case it chips, it will look grey inside and not bright white and won't keep needing a touch-up of paint. Hiding a few of the crimes. And it does dry tough. It's good stuff when it's dry. I just, for me, I had to paint over it wet because of the time challenge, so it was a little awkward. And you have to mix up small batches, even when you're going fast, because it semi-hardens quite fast, I find. Like I say, sometimes I go into a project and I know exactly what I'm doing. That's a lie. I mostly know what I'm doing, and sometimes I'm just playing some jazz, and this is some jazz. Not everybody likes jazz, so let me know if you like jazz in the comments. Here's a quick little hack. I found these skulls on Amazon and I'd had them lying around for a while. Thought this would be a good place to use them. Representing some dwarf and orc skulls. Quite nice actually. There's like 4 different types in this bag. One of them's pretty goofy looking. I think it works well enough for an orc for this. Given more time, I'd have sculpted some little skulls myself. but I didn't, so I haven't. Right, so switching to the airbrush. Got to speed things up a little bit now. And just mix together a grey-black with some non-abrasive paints. As I haven't done a particularly good job of sealing the foam, so all the paint I'm using has no solvents, it's all foam safe. So mostly water-based acrylics is what we're talking about there. And then everybody's fave, the dry brush. When you're doing a build like this and you're kind of making it up as you go along, you're hitting quite a lot of peaks and troughs, I would say, in the emotional journey of the build. It's like, oh, this looks rubbish. Okay, this looks okay. Okay, not so good. All over the place with this one. More so Saruman's, which I think is the weaker of the two. But once the dry brush started going on to the Moria bookend, I started to like it a little bit more. Some of the texture and detail in the work was sort of coming out. It's interesting because the Isengard one requires more direct detail, whereas the mine is more shortcut detail. So the sort of detail you get from quick overall techniques as opposed to individually crafting items and elements of the scene, Isengard required more of that. And Isengard actually kind of like just started creating some books and some maps and some charts, stuff reminiscent from the back room in Isengard that you see, I guess Saruman's study, but bringing it forward into the diorama just because I felt it was a bit boring without it. You may disagree, it might look better, simpler, but yeah, I've added some books and some bits and bobs and candles and stuff just to give it some visual interest. Adding some nice mithril silver here to the mine in the form of a dry brush. We're then going to go for the UV resin and lock these electrics down to Gandalf's staff and paint them in so they hopefully become invisible. Here we go, I'm going to swap out the Palantir for a marble so that light will pass through. And this is a complete experiment here. I have coated the marble in some black undercoat. And I will let that dry. While that's drying, I'm taking some gloss Mod Podge and I'm adding some little wet areas to the mine. This is going to create like specular highlights. Back to the Palantir now, it's just about dried and I'm scratching in an Eye of Sauron. And a last minute change to the LEDs. I didn't like the white. The marble doesn't have enough pigment in it to create a really red glow, so I swapped the LEDs out for red and orange. So I'm going to carve out the top and slam them on. And then everything will be filled and straightened up at the end. And with that I finish up roughly in the time I set out.
A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Okay, so I'm going to call these guys done. It's an interesting experiment, the time challenge. I won't be doing it any time again soon. It's really, really irritating. Had I given myself more time, I'd have added a wood veneer and a little more refined detail. But for a quick project, I think they do the job. You may be noticing some cheeky gen fill on the sides of some of these images to fill out the widescreen. Regardless of how you may feel about AI, and I'm no fan, I do like that AI thought my XPS rocks were real rocks when expanding the image. Hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one.